Welcome to the FCS Edge, where this week we have a special visit by the GOAT. No, I'm not talking Zach McKinnell. He's here every week, but more on the GOAT in a minute. I'm Craig Haley of Stats Reform and TheAnalyst.com, along with the aforementioned Zach McKinnell of FCS Football Central on SI. Zach, are you losing more sleep from Big Sky After Dark or 18-inning World Series games?
I don't know, man. It might be that World Series game. I was up to like 2:00 in the morning, threw off my whole week. But no, man, like the Big Sky After Dark, as long as we keep them on Friday, I think I feel a little bit better, man. Saturday's a little bit busy. So maybe we should just move the Big Sky to Friday nights.
I like that. Well, as you know, Graham Bell is our producer. This episode of the FCS Edge, we're going to talk fallout from North Dakota State's blowout win of South Dakota State. We're going to preview and predict Week 10. And, of course, the GOAT himself, Jerry Rice. He's going to visit with us in the second segment. He's a former FCS All-American at Mississippi Valley State. But let's get first to that topic. Last week's game of the week didn't quite turn out to be a masterpiece. North Dakota State number 1, 38-7 over number 2, South Dakota State. The 33-game home winning streak of the Jackrabbits is gone now, and it was the largest margin of win in the series, 31 points since in 33 years, since 1992. What are some of your takeaways here?
Yeah, I think it was very clear when we recorded last week, Craig, that there were a handful of things that South Dakota State needed to do, especially if Chase Mason didn't play to stay in this game. And I don't think they checked any of those boxes, Craig. And I think the one thing they did well, and I want to give them credit, is I thought they stopped North Dakota State's downhill rushing attack pretty well. Pinu and that rushing attack outside of a handful of moments on the first drive, Craig, really weren't super effective. The one thing though that I think was the most blatant, I guess mistake from that defense was the one thing you can't let Cole Payton do is beat you on off schedule plays or broken plays. And Craig, every time it was third and long, every time North Dakota State needed to play, Cole Payton found a way to deliver. And I don't think, and I think they did a good job stopping his design runs. It was those broken runs that really hurt them. And then also too, there's this, sometimes you just can't stop a great player, right, Craig? You can play great defense, perfect coverage, and a guy like Bryce Lance is just going to make a play. And I think you saw that a handful of times this weekend. And then the other thing was, I thought offensively, you just have to force the run game almost to try to help Marble get comfortable, right? It couldn't be all on him. And I think when North Dakota State took away the run game, particularly the downhill rushing attack of South Dakota State, it really put a lot of pressure on Marble. First start, redshirt freshman Craig, you look at that North Dakota State defense, they have a ton of talent on that defense. They're super disciplined. They don't have any gaudy stat guys. They don't have a 20 sack guy. They don't have a 7-8 interception guy, but what they have are a bunch of guys who play together that are disciplined and rally to the football, and they don't make mistakes. And I think you saw that this weekend. And then also, to even at defensive tackle, without their top defensive tackle, you saw Keenan Wilson, you saw Logan Larson. Those guys made a big impact from the interior.
Yeah, Marble, faced a lot of pressure, and that's on another level when it's coming from the Bison. And you mentioned Cole Payton. I mean, he just took over in the first half. I mean, 280 of his 380 total yards, 3 of his 4 rushing touchdowns. At 31-7, nobody's going to come back from that kind of deficit like South Dakota State faced. One of my takeaways is more the Jackrabbits here. I mean, I don't think the gap is as much as this one night showed. I mean, obviously, North Dakota State has separated itself this year, but in a one-game situation, they can be beaten. And it could be the Jackrabbits who could do it to them, in the playoffs. But at the same time, I feel like the Jackrabbits, we feel so differently about them today than a week ago. We thought they were clearly a 1 or a 2. Now it's a group of 4 or 5 teams, maybe 6, that we feel they're in behind the Bison. Do you feel that way, that there's a whole different opinion, especially if Chase Mason continues to be in a walking boot?
Yeah, if Chase Mason's out, I think the trajectory of this team changes significantly. And Craig, I don't even know, because for me at least, I can only speak for me personally. I kind of talked about it a little bit, as I kind of already thought that it was North Dakota State and everybody else. I even thought the Jacks with Chase Mason were a step below the Bison, and that's no like I think South Dakota State's a really great team, right? Craig? They should make a semifinal run if all things equal and they stay healthy. Man, this Bison team is special, Craig, and they have a different level, and they're doing that thing that we've seen other NDSU national title teams do is every week you're like, man, they haven't really been tested. Well, they have. It's just they've been blowing everybody out. That we now we look differently back on those teams. Like Illinois State's a really good team. They beat them and demolished them. I think that the way they beat South Dakota sent that season on a completely different trajectory too, and they've beat a handful of ranked teams. I want to say like what 4 ranked wins now
Yeah,
for them. I mean,
yeah.
they've been excellent. And now, Craig, we're on to the next team. We aren't going to know what this team is, Craig, until they play North Dakota. Well, what happens if they beat North Dakota by 30? Are we going to look at North Dakota differently now? So I think the Bison are just that good. And I do think the Jacks, Craig, the one thing you want to do is get healthy, right? Van Tol gets banged up. Ogroski's been banged up. Now Mason's hurt. We don't know how long he's out for. They have a ton of question marks, but also, too, I do think there's some teams in that group, Craig, that have elevated, and maybe that's why we look at this group maybe a little bit bigger. You look at Montana playing so well. North Dakota has emerged as one of the best teams in the country, and Tarleton continues to roll. So I think it's more of other teams have started to elevate their game, while injuries have kind of brought South Dakota State a little bit closer to the middle of the pack there in that group.
Yeah, and you have Tarleton 2, Montana 3, Stats Reform FCS top 25. Now we have a two-way tie, Montana State and South Dakota State at 4. Obviously, tight game when they played. South Dakota State won 30-24 in double overtime earlier in the season with Chase Mason. So it's a good group. I mean, UC Davis has been there for a while now at number 6, and that's another quality team. But let's talk Tarleton since they've moved up to number 2, highest ranking of their FCS era, which is 6 seasons now. I think they're a worthy 2. They're 9-0, 5-0 in conference. A big game this week in the UAC, going to Abilene Christian. Do you feel Tarleton's a worthy number 2?
So I personally didn't have them at number 2, but I don't hate them being at number 2. Like I get the argument. The only reason I would have Montana over them is I think Montana has the better win on their resume. Like that North Dakota win is huge, and I think North Dakota is right there on par with one of the best wins in the country. You could put South Dakota State over Montana State, but I like Montana just slightly right now at number 2. But Craig, they're really 2A, 2B for me when I look at it, and I do think the conversation around Tarleton's a bit unfair. I see a lot of people saying they don't even belong in the top 5. They don't belong in the top 3. They haven't played anybody. Well, Craig, their strength of schedule is higher than Montana's. They have like I keep getting asked like what their quality win is. The quality win is Army. Like that's a big win, and Army's going to be. And I bet you Army makes a bowl game this year, and they're probably going to win that bowl game because they usually do, and they don't typically lose to FCS teams. Like that game was on the road, and I think that's their quality win. And I'm just little bit confused on why everyone's down on them. They've won every FCS game by 10 points or more, outscored their FCS opponents by like 200 plus points. And Craig, there was a few weeks where they played without their starting quarterback and multiple starters. I don't know what everyone else wants from Tarleton State.
Well, I tell you what. I mean, they were number 3 in the committee top 10 2 weeks ago. If they win against Abilene Christian, they're probably number 2 right now after last week, with the Jackrabbits losing. I bet they moved up to number 2 in the committee. And if they beat Abilene Christian on the road, the committee loves road wins. They already have 5 that's tied for the national high with North Dakota State. West Georgia, Chattanooga, Eastern Kentucky on the road. All right, those are just solid teams. They're not the elite level like in North Dakota, but that's a good resume. If they win out, I can't see why they wouldn't be number 2 with the committee. I mean, even if Montana wins out, because that win against Montana State would be terrific for Montana, but there's no shortchanging this resume. So I think it's an interesting conversation. You can make the case either way many times, and this is certainly one. Now, here's one you can make a case differently than maybe a week ago. The Celebration Bowl race. If you look down the poll, 24, there's Jackson State. They lose to Grambling State, 26-24 in Las Vegas. Second straight year they lose to Grambling State. That was a surprise. I mean, obviously Jacoby and Morgan got hurt in the game at quarterback. That's a big difference maker. But I think we're looking at it differently now. The race to the Celebration Bowl, because Prairie View out in the West is leading the race to hosting the SWAC championship game over Jackson State. You know, you look at the MEAC, Delaware State's now viable when you go to North Dakota or North Carolina Central and get a win. They could maybe run the table in the MEAC, and they host the defending champ, South Carolina State, in the final game. So you must be thrilled how wide open this race is now to the Celebration Bowl.
Yeah, right when everyone bought tickets to go to Jackson to watch Jackson State PV, everything kind of flipped on its head, and PV doesn't have an easy stretch either. They gotta play Alabama State this weekend. Andrew Body might be one of the hottest players in the country, and Craig, I mean, I understand the Walter Payton race is already crowded right now, but Andrew Body's right there statistically in leading Alabama State. If they find a way to win the SWAC, I don't see how he's not possibly in that conversation, especially because Alabama State hasn't won the SWAC in a long, long time too. So that would be a massive, I would say, check in his box. But yeah, Jackson, you look at what happened to Jacoby and Morgan. I think they had a little bit of trouble deciding who was going to be the guy there. They put in Parker Stofa. They put in Jared Lockhart, who's a true freshman. He made some key throws, led them to on 2 touchdown drives. But for Jackson, the biggest question is how long is Jacoby out for? There's been rumors that he could be out for an extended amount of time. And if he is, Craig, do you trust a true freshman to lead you into Bragg and get you a win against FAMU? Do you trust him to beat Bethune-Cookman? Do you trust him to beat Alcorn State, Mississippi Valley State? There's going to be some key games here because one slip up, if Alabama State wins this weekend, they have a really, really good shot to win out. You're on the outside looking in. And Craig, I don't think a Jackson State team with one more loss has the resume to make the playoffs this year with how tight the bubble is going to be with the addition of the Ivy League. And same for North Carolina Central. How disappointing for Trey Oliver and the Eagles. Every year, Craig, there's that one game where it just doesn't seem to click. And it happened game one this year. And now they're going to be playing catch up and hoping Delaware State slips up somewhere. But that rushing attack from Delaware State, Marquise Gillis, Caden Bennett's playing excellent football right now at quarterback. Their defense isn't spectacular, and there's a lot of problems there, but their defense continues to get key stops when it matters most, man. So I think Deshaun Jackson, man, I don't know if there's been a better coaching job in the FCS than what he's done with Delaware State. For people who don't understand, it was their first MEAC win since 2022. Their first win in Durham since 1977, Craig. I mean, it has been an outstanding turnaround for Delaware State.
Well, I'll tell you, if the Celebration Bowl, if it doesn't include, I think going into the year, Jackson State, we consider them more of a favorite to win the Celebration Bowl than we did North Dakota State to win the FCS National Championship. I mean, it'd be stunning if they don't even get to the conference championship game in the SWAC, and it's now a possibility, as you mentioned. And both races are great, the SWAC and the MEAC, moving forward here into the final month. All right, so we know that's changed. What is the one conference in the FCS that you love their race going into November?
I think the most interesting race might be the Southland right now. I know that might not be the most popular pick, but like you look at Lamar, Southeastern Louisiana, Stephen F. Austin, all sitting right there at 4-0, and then man, you got UTRGV just knocking on the door behind them out of nowhere. Greg? Who would have thought that UTRGV would be 6-2? And I almost feel bad that they're now on the playoff bubble because Craig, I don't think their administration thought they'd be here in the playoff bubble. And now they're probably like, we probably should have not scheduled one of those non-D1 games, and maybe we even have a better chance of getting in. But they got to win over the potential SWAC West champion we just talked about in PV. They just demolished Incarnate Word. Their only two losses are a 2-point loss to Lamar and then a road loss to Southeastern Louisiana. I mean, you can't, that's not a bad resume, but you look at those top three teams, Lamar is going to have a chance here, Craig, to really secure this. They play both Southeastern and Stephen F. Austin, but the interesting thing is going to be is let's just say Lamar beats one of them, and then like let's just say Stephen F. Austin slips up somewhere, and you have a three-way tie. who gets the auto bid? It's gonna be a massive debate, but this is the race I'm looking at the most, and it is a shame, Craig, and I know it's not the Southland's fault. They'll move to 9 games next year, but the fact that it just happened to be that Southeastern and Stephen F. Austin are both so good and they don't play this year, I really hope that I really wish we got to see that matchup because I think that'd be one of the best matchups of the season.
Yeah, unbalanced scheduling, nobody likes to see it. It's a reality this year at least in 6 of the 13 conferences, but it is good that the Southland will be able to move away from that next year. I agree. The Southland could be the best conference race. That is, I'll give you one. I'll give you the Ivy League. Harvard's 3-0, and you have Penn, Princeton, Dartmouth, Yale. They're all 2-1 in conference. Obviously, it's the first year of the playoff bid. Uh, Maybe the biggest game is this weekend, Dartmouth at Harvard. Yale wants to say their game is the game against Harvard, so we'll see. But that is the fun part of this race, because even if Harvard wins and gets that tiebreaker over Dartmouth, they still have some rivalry games, including the Yale. Penn's always a great matchup for Harvard. It just seems like the back end of the schedule is most interesting in the Ivy League. So I think that race can be considered the best one. Is there a race that maybe somebody who's not in first place right now that you think is going to come off from behind and win the title?
I don't know about win, but the one team that I'm like kind of got circled watching very closely, and I counted them out about 2 weeks ago, and here I am looking like I don't know what I'm talking about. How about UT Martin slowly sneaking back into this OVC Big South race? They control their own destiny. They already got a big win over Gardner Webb. They still have to play Tennessee Tech. If they win out, Craig, they could be in. They could have the auto bid at 7-5, and this was a team that was what, Craig, 0-4 to start the year. They looked horrible, and all those transfers are starting to click. And let's just be honest, head coach Jason Simpson has been one of the more underrated coaches in the country. He won 4 consecutive conference titles. Craig, they're on the path to possibly getting a share of the fifth. Now, it's a tall order to beat this Tennessee Tech team, but if there's a team in the conference that I don't want to play when all the chips are in the middle of the table in the OVC Big South, it would be UT Martin because they've constantly delivered when it mattered most.
You stole my thunder. I've been on UT Martin for 2 weeks. I noticed it after would have been after week 8. That they had a chance. Maybe it was even week 7. They had a chance to really run the table and set up that final game as a de facto championship in the OVC Big South. Now they'll be at Tennessee Tech in that game, which is asking a lot. But yes, I mean Jason Simpson his program is outstanding, that they can overcome an 0-4 type of start with 3 of those games being FBS and also Southern Illinois. So that one's terrific. I think Yale, we talked Ivy League a few minutes ago. I think they can do the same thing. They had an early loss to Dartmouth by a point in the Ivy League, but they host Harvard in the last game. So maybe that becomes the tiebreaker. Yale's just a terrific program. So
There's another one too. Like, I know everyone's kind of locked in on Mercer, Western Carolina, but Chattanooga's right there, 3-1 in conference, and Rusty Wright is always right. I mean, listen, never count out Rusty Wright either. And this Mox team has kind of turned a corner here, and they've won some games. And if they find a way to pull off some upsets down the stretch, we could be talking about Chattanooga right there making a push for that SoCon auto bid.
Oh, yeah, Chattanooga is probably underperformed, but they have gotten hot now at the right time, and they certainly need to beat Western Carolina this week, and then they also get Mercer later on. So, yeah, that's another one. Now, you know, we want to get to Jerry Rice soon, but you have been mentioning coaches, including Deshaun Jackson. What Rusty Wright's doing. Some of the other coaches, Jason Simpson. But if we looked at the Eddie Robinson Award, the FCS Coach of the Year. It's in its 39th year. Who stands out? Obviously, Deshaun Jackson, but who stands out in your mind right now for that award?
Pete Razamondo at Lamar. I still don't think people understand how bad that program really was, Craig. And the fact that he has that team flying up the top 25 in a position to possibly finish undefeated against the FCS and win the Southland, he still doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion. Also, I think Bobby Wilder at Tennessee Tech, I think what he's done in only 2 years there, you look at the way he revamped that staff, revamped that scouting department. He's done an excellent job. And then the third one here, Craig, Joel Taylor. West Georgia. I know they're not necessarily playoff eligible or anything like that, but to have this team year two of the transition at 6-3, they were in the top 25. They've beat some really good teams. I think Joel Taylor belongs in that conversation. And then also down there at UTRGV, there's a coach that potentially could get some votes too. I mean, for if they find a way to finish 10-2, Craig, I don't know. I don't know how they don't win it down there.
We've had a good season of guests on the FCS Edge because we had Travis Bush, UTRGV. We had Bobby Wilder of Tennessee Tech on. Kevin Callahan at Monmouth. He's done a great job there. If they keep winning out, I mean, and only have, say, an FBS loss, he's got to be in the mix. My preseason pick for the Eddie Robinson Award, I'm going to throw him out here as maybe my favorite right now. Todd Whitten, Tarleton State, to be 9-0. All 6 years on the FCS level, they've had winning seasons. They went to the playoffs in their first year of eligibility last year. If they can sweep, a 12-0 regular season and win the UAC, which has just been a standout conference the last couple of years, I think he's right there in the mix. But it just shows you, Deshaun Jackson, it just shows you how many great coaches are out there on the FCS level and how many are getting the job done in different ways, whether it's rebuilding a team or just, maintaining excellence. I mean, even Tim Polasek, I mean, he's got to be considered for what he's done. Sometimes that's hard to do when you have a championship level team, but hey, you're getting everybody's best shot. So the Eddie Robinson Award is terrific just because of how deep, the group of candidates go. All right, we're going to talk Jerry Rice Ward with Jerry Rice himself after in segment 2. So we're going to take a break from the FCS Edge. As we go to break, we're going to look at the Week 9 Stats Reform FCS National Players and Teams of the Week. This is the FCS Edge. Welcome back to the FCS Edge. Zach and I are pleased to be joined by Jerry Rice, not just one of the greatest players in the history of football, but also a former All-American on the FCS level at Mississippi Valley State. How you doing today, Jerry?
I am doing fantastic. Great to be on the show, and let's have some fun, man. Let's roll, baby.
Certainly. Well, let's get right to it. Jerry, this is the 15th anniversary season of your award, the Jerry Rice Award for the FCS National Freshman of the Year. I mean, you talk about great names: Cooper Kupp, Chase Edmonds, Trey Lance, Cam Ward, Shador Sanders. Can you tell us about this award and what it means to you as it's developed this great list of recipients?
Well, I can't believe it actually been about 15 years already, but to be up there with Eddie Robertson, uh, you know, uh, Walter Payton, uh, all of these guys, because it's all about giving back to the HBCUs. And, I'm glad that I've been doing it for 15 years. Like you said, Cooper Cup, Trey Lance, Shador Sanders, all of these guys, they have came through and they have won my award. And it's just all about giving back and trying to put these guys on a platform where they can be successful in life and just having that interaction with these players. But also, the most important thing too is to be around their families, because, I believe that with family support, you're going to be successful. And I'm excited to still be part of it. looking forward to these athletes, and I'm excited about who's going to win, and just being able to interact with that individual.
Jared, this year's list already has a ton of top candidates. We have a bunch of really, really good freshman quarterbacks this year, some defensive guys really shining. What are your initial impressions of the in-season Jerry Rice Award watch list?
Well, a quarterback, from Mercer, Atkinson, he's 6'1", about 215. Then you got a linebacker from New Hampshire, where uh, he's about 6'1", 222. And they're getting the job done. But I think with Atkinson, I think he threw for so many yards, just this past weekend. And if anybody, I feel like if anyone is going to win, I feel like he's that lead dog right now, but he got to continue and put up outstanding numbers, but still also be that individual that get it done in the classroom, and represent the right way, lead by being productive on the field, and also there's a certain way you have to be a leader off the field too.
Talk about a lead dog. I mean, Mississippi Valley State used to have one with you. I mean, everybody thinks NFL first with you, but your career on the FCS level was off the charts. The way you set records, you're an All-American. Can you kind of tell us a little more about your career? I mean, that dynamic you had with
Yeah.
quarterback Willie Totten, and what that would be worth in NIL money right now.
Yeah, you know what, man? We were talking about that a little bit before, but if I had NIL back at Mississippi Valley State, man. So many nights I had to go to bed hungry and all of that, and I couldn't wait for breakfast the next morning. But I have nothing against these athletes getting their fair share. But I could have done some great things at Mississippi Valley, and I still did some great things. And I went there for my education. I had a coach from Mississippi Valley to come out, and he wanted me to come to Mississippi Valley State to play. And at that time, we had Archie the Gunslinger Cooley, we had Willie the Satellite Todd, and we were doing some incredible things at Mississippi Valley because we threw the ball like 90% of the time, and it got the eye of the NFL. So that really helped me get on that list. But still, I had to do the work, and I felt like I had the players around me to get it done, and I was able to do some things exceptional at Mississippi Valley State. I'll never forget, guy. Like those homecoming games, those battle of the bands, all of that, and just walking around that campus. We used to call ourselves receivers the Phi Look 'em Juke 'em. That was it. That was we had the jackets made up and everything, man. But we had guys that could really just run routes, and guys that was hungry to try to get to the next level. And I was very fortunate that I was able to get drafted by the greatest franchise ever, the San Francisco 49ers. But everything got started at Mississippi Valley State University.
You played in one of the greatest eras of the SWAC too, Jerry. I mean, a lot of people don't know Alcorn State was the original
Yeah.
DBU, and you guys had a legendary matchup over there in Mississippi's Veterans Memorial Stadium. Who were some of the toughest matchups that you ever had one-on-one in the SWAC?
Well, you know what? You just hit it right on the nose, because you just brought back bad memories of Isaac Hope back in the day. Man, we were at Jackson State. We had over maybe close to 80,000, or maybe it might have been a little under 100,000 people at that game. And that game really, I think it really spoke in volume for the HBCU, that people, that you could go anywhere and still be successful in life, and also be seen, but also get drafted. So I would not go back and change anything, because playing in a SWAC, Southern University, Jackson State. Look at Walter Payton, the greatest running back ever, that came out of Jackson State University. And, for me to try to carry on that legacy at Mississippi Valley State, I felt honored. I was looking forward to the task, and I knew it was going to be difficult. But nothing comes easy. You have to work for it, and I think that was that little extra incentive to push me to continue to push forward and make it to the NFL.
Zach and I are visiting with Jerry Rice, the GOAT, of course. Jerry, you've been mentioning some great names here. Do you have a favorite football player all time, or two, or a couple people you can mention? Who are your favorites?
Think all of these guys, they were better than me. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, my God, Jim Brown. Like I said, Walter Payton. I played with some of the greatest receivers. Like Dwight Clark, Freddie Solomon. Then the list goes on because it's like Lynch one, Drew Pearson. It, I I thought of myself as being a piece of all of those receivers. And I said to myself, yeah, these guys, they were more gifted, all of that. But one thing I was gonna do, I was gonna outwork you. And maybe that came from my Mississippi upbringing, being around my father, where he was a provider for the family, and just watching him provide and work really hard every day. But I felt like I was a mixture of all of those receivers. And I always wanted to go out there and represent those guys. And I think I was not as talented, but I just outworked everyone else. And from Randy Moss to say playmaker Chris Carter, Andre Rison, all of those guys, they were so much more gifted than me. But I just felt like I was gonna work just a little bit harder.
Coach or Jerry, Coach Terrell Buckley takes over Mississippi Valley State this year. Year one, he's made a big emphasis on recruiting out of the state of Mississippi and building this program up to what it used to be. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen from him in year one and what you want to see from this program moving forward?
Well, what I see is great leadership. Uh, we talking about someone that was one of the best in the NFL. I think this guy had around maybe around 50 interceptions, and I think he probably took six of those back for touchdowns. And what he stood for, and I think you seeing that in the players, and it's gonna be big, man, because you lead by example. That's the only way I know how. And I think they got a fantastic coach now, someone that have done it, and the player's gonna respect that, and he's gonna be that draw. And I'm looking for this uh administration to get so much better and get stronger. And I would love for them to win the SWAC. I'm gonna be honest with you. So, but with him recruiting out of Mississippi, giving those players an opportunity, I feel like that is fantastic.
Jerry, we see you're repping goat fuel. I mean, can you tell us some of the projects and initiatives that you're involved in currently?
Yeah, but I'm a big part of the 49er Foundation too. So, but my daughter and her boyfriend at the time, they were in LA, and they were drinking energy drinks, and they were getting the jitters, the crash, and all that. And so my daughter reached out to me, and because she knew that I'm only going to put good things in my body where I could get that productivity on the football field. So she asked me if I had ever been part of an energy drink. I said no. She said, if you were, what would you name it? And off the top of my head, I said, Go Field, the greatest of all time. But not just for athletes. It can be an entrepreneur, anybody that inspired to be great on that given day. You guys wake up every day. You want to be the best that you can be. So that's really what it's all about, with Go Field. And we putting something out there a little bit healthier, and just because it's almost like it's all about the consumer. Because if they don't like it, they're not gonna purchase the drink again. So it has to sell itself. And basically, that's what Go Field is all about. We're in about 20,000 locations. We have raised over 20 million or more. I probably have about 20 employees that's on the ground and that really believe in what we're building here.
Jerry, the last question here, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you could not go to Mississippi Valley State, what other SWAC school would your choice be?
No, I had a brother. My brother played at Jackson State University. He was a center there, and I remember spending time there because I had thought about going to Jackson, but they were running like the wishbone. So it's like that's death for a wide receiver. You don't want to go there. Mississippi State was doing the same thing. So it's like I don't know, for some reason the sky just opened up. And when that coach from Mississippi Valley came to my house and I was able to shake his hand, that goes a long, long way in making a decision like that for a player or, someone that lives in Mississippi. And I went to Mississippi Valley and I was able to do some great things. And like I said, everything else is history. But yeah, it probably would have been, I'm thinking, Jackson State because my brother, he played there.
Well, that almost sounds like the land of make believe. You and the wishbone, but you would have turned that into the best wishbone in history for sure. What a career
That's
you had!
right. I would have, hey guys, I would have found a way somehow, because, it's like, man, I still have to pinch myself because I can't believe that I got a chance to play the greatest game ever with some of the greatest players to ever get it done, with some of the greatest fans here in San Francisco, the greatest coach, Bill Walsh, the legend himself. And, and I played it for over 20 years. And I was watching Michael Jordan do an interview and he was talking about, man, I wish I could take a pill and go back. Same here. I love the game so much that I still support it. But what would it be like to get back on that football field and play for the fans again? That would have been, I can't even put a number on that.
Jerry Rice, Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, the GOAT. We appreciate your time, Zach and I. This has just been such an insightful, fun interview with you.
Well, thanks a lot. Hey, go Mississippi Valley State University, Delta Devils, the San Francisco 49ers. And I want to say to you guys are GOATs. You guys are the greatest of all time.
Well, we look forward to the finalist list for the Jerry Rice Award, the 15th anniversary season. We look forward to learning who the winner is. We're going to take a break here from the FCS Edge, and we come back. Zach and I are going to have our Pick'em segment. This has been a lot of fun with Jerry Rice. This is the FCS Edge. Welcome back to the FCS Edge. Segment 3 is our Pick'em segment, and we are going to a great game of the week. Number 2, Tarleton 9-0 at number 24, Abilene Christian 4-4, but also 3-1 in the UAC. They have 3 top 25 wins. Only 2 other teams can say that. North Dakota State with 4, South Dakota State with 3. This is a fun game. The road team has won 3 straight years by a combined 10 points. I'm looking forward to it. Tell us about this game, Zach.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting matchup. I think it's always tough to win on the road, especially in conference play. You mentioned the road, the road team's been pretty good in this series, but it's still hard to win on the road, especially against a team like Abilene Christian that might be kind of fighting for their postseason hopes to stay alive. I mean, they're sitting here at 4-4. One more loss really puts them in a bad position because you got to win out and still hope the committee considers a 7-win team. And so that's going to be the big question mark here is how does Abilene Christian slow down this offense? It's been so balanced for Tarleton State, especially since Caballas has gotten back. Craig, he's playing at such a high level. We talked about over his career, he struggled with turnovers. He's gotten rid of the turnovers while keeping his efficiency. The wide receiving core is absolutely loaded, and Trey Page is a superstar. And that doesn't even get to the defensive side of the ball where they're still playing like 30 guys somehow. Angelo Anderson, Yasir Holmes, both of those guys are having a really good year off the edge. The one thing that concerns me, Craig, the rushing attack for Abilene Christian has been inconsistent at times. And when the rushing attack goes, everything gets thrown on Stone Earl. And he's been excellent, but he's also struggled with turnovers at times, especially in the games that they haven't performed well. I like Tarleton State here, but I do think Abilene Christian has the talent to make this one interesting, especially at home.
I agree. I mean, I think you have to like Tarleton State. They've been on such a roll, even amid the injuries. I mean, Trey Page, he's got support in James Page, in the running the ball. And you're right, Victor Gabalis has really come back strong, firing downfield since his 2 games back now. Stone Earl, he has to avoid turnovers. In fact, Abilene Christian does as a team. I mean, with Tarleton being plus 24 turnover margin in 9 games, it's one of the best in FCS history if it remains on that level. So I hope it's a great game. I do think it will go down the end. I'll go Tarleton as well. Now, we talked earlier about Dartmouth at Harvard. Harvard's up to number 12, 6-0, but Dartmouth's 5-1 in the Ivy League. They've both been part of three-way shares of the title in the last 2 years. The first bid in the Ivy League is at stake this season, going to the FCS playoffs. Close games all around through the years. I mean, 11 of the 13 last games in this series have been 8 points or fewer, and the other two were tight games in the fourth quarter at one point. So I, I'm going to go Harvard. I mean, because they're home. I think Dartmouth has a shot, though. I think their stars have to play well, and they certainly have a lot of stars. Saunier at quarterback, running back Crowther. Sean Williams in the secondary is going to have to, play well, to combat the passing attack of Harvard. So I'm going to go Harvard, but I think it's a great game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Harvard, not only just because of Jaden Craig. Like Craig, we could spend all day talking about Jaden Craig, but Ty Bartram, Damian Henderson, like that defense has been excellent. What I think they're gonna be able to do, I think they're gonna be able to stop the run. They're allowing less than 100 yards per game on the ground, and that secondary has been lights out. This defense is only allowing 255 per game total yardage for their opponents. I like Harvard to win this one, Craig, but like you said, I do think Dartmouth is talented enough to keep this one competitive.
Yeah, that's just a great game all around the Ivy League. That could have been our game of the week. All right, let's go to the Southern Conference. You talked about Chattanooga, their turnaround. They're hosting Western Carolina. Obviously, Teron Dickens has just been on such a roll. They're coming off a bye. Who do you like?
Yeah, give me Teron Dickens. I think this offense is good enough to win every game, but possibly the Mercer game. I know that one's coming up, but I just think that like that's the game I think Western Carolina is going to be really tested in just because of how good Mercer's defense is. I love what Rusty Wright's done, getting this team back on track, getting them locked in and focused, but I just think Western Carolina's too hot right now. Teron Dickens has not shown any flaws whatsoever, Craig. He's been lights out. And what he's done is he's elevated this whole team. You even look defensively, their advanced stats have improved since Teron Dickens has come back. And so I think Western Carolina finds a way to get it done.
I like the Catamounts as well. I mean, coming off that bye, they really, zeroed in on how to beat the Monks. But here's something interesting about Teron Dickens. He isn't showing up in the NCAA leaderboards because he hasn't played in 75% of his team's games. He missed the first 3. He is not going to show up on the passing yards per game, the total offensive yards per game, until the end of the regular season when he hits 9 full games out of 12, which would be 75% the minimum. And suddenly people are going to be like, whoa, there he is. They know all about him, but if you see him number 1, and we will probably at some point, total yards per game and passing yards per game, it'll really make his stock even go up higher, and he's been phenomenal. All right, let's go to the OVC Big South. Gardner Webb, they might have a shot here at number 9, Tennessee Tech. Obviously, Tennessee Tech's 9-0 and 5-0 in the league, but you have to like what Gardner Webb is doing.
Yeah, I'm still going to roll with Bobby Water and the Golden Eagles. I think this defense Craig, has been so good. They've been so good in the front seven, and I think where I get worried about this game is if Tennessee Tech stops to run, Gardner Webb putting the ball in the air, you have a very, very stinchy secondary for Tennessee Tech, and then you wonder, is there any way Gardner Webb's going to be able to stop the rushing attack of Tennessee Tech, which is so balanced? They have multiple guys in the backfield. Quintel Quinn has been outstanding for them this year, and they got probably three other backs behind them that could all go make plays. And then you got Kikoa Visperas, who, when he's on, Craig, he's one of the top quarterbacks in this league. I like Tennessee Tech in this one, especially at home.
Greshik and Holmes are really running wild for the aptly named running Bulldogs. But I tell you, you're right. The Tennessee Tech front seven has been great. I mean, they're giving up 43 rushing yards a game. That's hard to sustain that. But if they do, that would be number 3 all time in an FCS season. I mean, 43 is just shaking my head kind of number. So yeah, I'll go with Tennessee Tech at home. All right, number 1, North Dakota State. Well, they're getting a visit by Bo Brungard and Youngstown State up to number 18. Can there be an upset? Does Bo know upset?
He can. I do think this could be a little bit of a sneaky trap game. I'm going to pick the Bison, so let me just get that out of the way. But I do think it could be a sneaky trap game because of this, Craig. You had all the energy and emotion of that rivalry game last week. Do you just kind of sleepwalk into this game? We saw the Bison sleepwalk against, what was it, Indiana State. They kind of sleptwalk early against Southern Illinois. If that happens, Bo Brungard and Youngstown State's good enough to put some points up. You saw what they did against South Dakota State a handful of weeks ago. The question is going to be like, this is Bo Brungard's Walter Payton moment. Craig, if they win this game, it's because he puts up a stat line that me, you, Sam, some of the other national media members are going to be like, yeah, go ahead and give him the Walter Payton. That's what it's going to take. But the one thing I am a little bit concerned about, Craig, is a downhill rushing attack with the running backs. I think North Dakota State's been so good, and what they're going to do is they're going to put one of those athletic linebackers like Woolen as a spy, and they're not going to let Brungard get out of the pocket, and that's going to be their strategy. And then on the flip side, Craig, I don't think me or you have seen anybody stop Cole Payton yet, and that's going to be really the bigger test here. So give me North Dakota State to win. I do think Youngstown keeps it close early.
Well, just hearing you talk Brungard and Payton, next week maybe we'll make our way back to some of the awards races because the Walter Payton one is fascinating. How many big names keep popping up as we're talking. I root for great games. I hope this is one, but you can't go against the Bison inside the Fargo Dome. All right. Also in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, number 8, North Dakota's at South Dakota. You and I have been big on the Fighting Hawks way before everybody really started to zero in and raise them up where they stood. Jerry Kaminsky's been tremendous at quarterback. I like North Dakota here.
I like North Dakota big in this one.
All right. We talked Texas Rio Grande Valley, UTRGV. That big game at Stephen F. Austin, number 20 Lumberjacks. I think it could be an upset. I know it's, the Lumberjacks are favorite at home and 6 straight wins, but I tell you what, the Vaqueros have already played Lamar tight. They had a credible final score against Southeastern Louisiana. This is their last shot to really stamp their resume. I'm going to say they get it done on the road.
Ooh, okay. I didn't see that one coming. I like Stephen F. Austin here. I do think UTRGV can keep it interesting, but I think where it's going to fall apart, Craig, is I think Stephen F. Austin, I like their defense, and I do think the depth of that defense is going to, and you're going to see a similar type of game that you saw with Southeastern Louisiana. I think this one could be 40, 30 something in that range, maybe high 30s, 20 something, somewhere in there, like a pretty high scoring game. The problem is I just think Stephen F. Austin's too balanced. They got the running game going, Sam Vidlak's experience, they got weapons on the outside. I just think this defensive line is going to be a bit too much for UTRGV, so give me Stephen F. Austin.
Good pick. The Pioneer Football League, we saw Presbyterian go down for the first time last week to Dayton. It's kind of opened up the race. Butler back in it now, hosting Drake, which is 4-0 in the league, 5-2 overall, the 2-time defending champion. This is a tough assignment on the road. They've won. The Bulldogs have won 22 of the last 23. I think this is a toss-up game. I'll go Drake on the road because they know how to win tight games, but I think it could go either way here.
If you remember, Craig, I picked Drake to win the Pioneer to start the season. I'm going to go with Drake here. I'm going to stick with my pick. They've been hot, and what a coaching job for that new staff as well. Everyone kind of thought they were going to take a step back, bigging up St. Thomas and San Diego and all these other teams. Man, Drake's just stay consistent, and a win here, man, will go a long way in securing that auto bid.
Well, if you bring up that I picked San Diego to win the Pioneer League, I'm just going to say you were sleepwalking after the 18-inning World Series game and you just dreamed it. All right, let's go to the Big Sky. I think it's a fascinating storyline how Eastern Washington is back into good graces with where they stand. They're 4-4. They're 3-1. If they beat Sacramento State at home, they'd be 4-1. With a tough road game ahead of Montana, but hey, you're still in the mix at that point. I'm going to go the Eagles getting it done at home.
Wow, this one was a 50-50 game. I never thought we'd be here, Craig, picking Eastern Washington and Sacramento State. I left them for dead, and they've turned it around. I mean, listen, they've been finding ways to win. I'll put it like that. It might not be pretty. They might not statistically be blowing you out of the water, but guess what? They just find ways when the scoreboard hits zero, Craig, they got more points than their opponent. They're finding ways to do that. I'm going to go Sac State, though. I thought Cardell Williams really was a revelation last week against Montana. He had his best game of the season. That rushing attack is so potent, and they can run the ball on almost anybody. And I think that defensive line is able to wreak enough havoc. Give me Sacramento State getting a win on the road.
Yeah, if the Eagles don't get it done, it's because their defense won't stop the run here. Because Sac State, very deep what they could throw at you. So that's a fun game in the Big Sky. All right, last one here in the SWAC. We talked about Alabama State. They're in a three-way tie in the East Division. Is at Prairie View A&M, which is now has been atop the West for a while now. They're 6-2 overall. They're 4-0. Leading the division. This is a big matchup because their schedule does lighten if they can, after this and they beat Alabama State. Who do you like?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Andrew Body and Alabama State. I think he's playing the best football in HBC football right now. That Bama State team's really rolling. I think Jackson's loss only added to the blood in the water that they smell, and they're gonna be locked in and looking to win out and possibly be able to capitalize if Jackson State loses again, especially with Jacobian's injury. I will say this though, Craig, we talked about coach of the year candidates. Tremaine Jackson has done such a good job at PV too. That's one we probably should mention. But I'll say this: their defense has been really good. Their secondary, in particular, has been excellent. I want to say it still ranks number one in the SWAC. This is a really good matchup. I think it's close, but I'm always going to lean the more dynamic quarterback and the best player on the field in Andrew Body. And Greg, he's headed home from Corpus Christi, Texas. He's headed back to Texas in PV. Craig, another interesting stat: he played at Texas Southern. He never beat PV in his career yet. This is his one. This is his shot now to get revenge against one of those home state teams that overlooked him.
That's a great storyline. I'm so glad you pointed that out. Now, I think you mentioned earlier this year I'd probably get lost on my way out to the Prairie PV. At least the Panthers are there. I think they find their way to a win. Their pass defense is one of the best in the nation. You mentioned the best in the SWAC, but they're number 2 to North Dakota State in fewest yards allowed. Andrew Body's off the charts, so they're going to have to defend him well. But I'm going to go Prairie View. I'm not even sure if I call it an upset or not because this is a real toss-up game in the SWAC and so much riding here on this one. So it's a great week of games. I mean, you have nationally ranked games, you have rivalries, you have teams receiving votes playing nationally ranked teams. The schedule goes deep. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, again, we could have had 2 different stats perform games of the week. We went with Tarleton State at Abilene Christian. We could have went Dartmouth at Harvard. I know you will. Are you a Dodger fan?
No, 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 no. I only watch baseball when the World Series is on. I really don't even have a team. I root for the Marlins kind of a little bit because that's who my stepdad rooted for. But I'm not a huge baseball guy. I just like to watch the World Series. I'm just a sports guy. Just when it's a big game, Craig, I'll turn it on and I'll stay up till 2 a.m. to watch a game. I really ain't rooting for anybody in.
Well, if there's a Game 7 Saturday night, I still know you'll have a couple screens on for FCS action. So great week ahead. We appreciate all the viewers and listeners for our podcast each week. Graham Bell, our producer, really just puts it all together for us. What a conversation we had with Jerry Rice. terrific guest to have this week. Learned so much about, his award, his, FCS background at Mississippi Valley State. That was a fun conversation. I'm looking forward to it, Zach. Anything stand out to you the most?
No, man, I'm ready. Listen, playoff pictures shaping up. There's some massive games. Listen, I don't even pay attention to ranked games anymore. It's just which games can affect the playoff bubble. And there's a lot of elimination games this weekend, Craig, from the Big Sky to the Pioneer. It's going to be a big weekend, and it's only going to get bigger. And we got the committee rankings next week as well. Another top 10 coming out. I'm just really interested. It's the first time, Craig, we've got to see how the committee shifts their opinions on team mid-season. And so maybe it'll give us a better idea of how a certain win impacts the committee's perception.
Well, next time we talk, it'll be into November and that stretch run. So looking forward to it. And we'll be back next week with more of the FCS Edge.